I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
The Snow White version is woke and feminist and progressive.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution.
Rachel Zegler, she's an...
Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Leave it the alone.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
Of course, like with everything on the left these days, they just take it too far.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It makes a little bit more sense.
You can gaslight people so easily.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
Nobody wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? The outrage.
So the two stars hate each other.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
Disney's Snow White remake wasn't just a flop, it was an all-out disaster. Bill Maher just went off on Rachel Zegler and the woke Hollywood machine behind this mess, and let's just say, he didn't hold back. From trashing the original, to rewriting the entire story with a cringeworthy agenda, this film was doomed before it even hit theaters. And now, even diehard Disney fans are fed up. So, what exactly did Maher say, and why is this backlash so brutal? Let's get into it.
Snow White gets her name, not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know. She gets her name from surviving a snowstorm.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business. Thanks.
Never trusted a first reaction by anybody in the media. Please go look at the list of names of people who hyped this up as a good movie, and make sure you never take their opinions seriously ever again.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension. Racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
They banked on 100.
Rachel Zegler's PR disaster didn't just happen. It was a slow-motion train wreck that she couldn't stop, even if she tried. The moment she started talking about Snow White, the internet exploded. Instead of honoring the original film that made Disney what it is today, she trashed it.
Large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
And then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far, but it wasn't sincere.
She called the 1937 classic weird and outdated, dismissing the very story that generations grew up loving. That alone would have been enough to spark controversy, but she didn't stop there. She declared that Snow White no longer needed a prince, rolling her eyes at the idea of romance and saying, she's not going to be saved by the prince. She's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's going to be the leader she knows she can be.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Oh my God.
For many, this wasn't empowering. It was insulting. Fans didn't ask for a rewritten Snow White. They wanted the fairy tale they loved, not a lecture on modern feminism. But Zegler made it clear she didn't care. She dismissed concerns, mocked the original story, and called critics toxic for wanting a faithful adaptation. The arrogance in her tone only made things worse. Then came the political baggage. Old anti-Trump tweets resurfaced, reigniting a firestorm online. Suddenly, it wasn't just Disney fans upset. It was an entire demographic that felt personally attacked. The backlash wasn't just about Snow White anymore. It became a culture war, and Zegler was right in the middle of it. But let's be real, Zegler wasn't the only problem here. Disney set itself up for failure, determined to rewrite. A classic that didn't need fixing. And what they did next? It only made things worse.
Prince Charming in the traditional fairy tale and in the 1937 movie has been replaced by a common criminal.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level? What does that mean?
Disney didn't just modernize Snow White, they completely erased everything that made it special. If you thought The Little Mermaid remake was bad, this was worse. The studio seemed more focused on pushing a message than telling a good story, and fans saw right through it. Snow White was no longer a princess with dreams of love and adventure. Now she was a leader who didn't need saving. The prince? He was practically written out of the film, reduced to an irrelevant footnote. The evil queen? No longer jealous of Snow White's beauty, but instead obsessed with power, because apparently, vanity wasn't a strong enough motivation anymore. And then came the soundtrack, or rather, the lack of one. Classic songs like Someday My Prince Will Come and Hi-Ho were scrapped, replaced with a forgettable girl boss empowerment anthem that no one asked for. The heart and soul of the original were gone, replaced with a checklist of modern Hollywood cliches. The backlash was instant. Fans weren't just annoyed, they were furious. It wasn't just about making changes, it was the way Disney did it. The studio wasn't lovingly updating a classic, they were mocking it. They treated the original story as a problem to be fixed rather than something worth celebrating. Audiences didn't reject this movie because they hate strong female characters. They rejected it because it insulted everything they loved. And when people called out Disney's terrible choices, the studio doubled down instead of listening.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime, and let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely f***ing atrocious.
Your voice will carry through and bring that dream to you, just like an echo, echo, echo.
Disney had a golden opportunity to honor its own legacy and provide roles for actors with dwarfism, but instead, they caved to outrage and erased the dwarfs entirely. Originally, the plan was to cast real little people, a decision that could have given much-needed representation to a group often overlooked in Hollywood. But then Game of Thrones star Peter Dinklage stepped in. In a viral interview, Dinklage slammed the remake, calling the idea of 7 dwarfs problematic and backward. Instead of standing by their original vision or even considering a balanced approach, Disney panicked. They scrapped the traditional dwarfs altogether and replaced them with a bizarre, random mix of CGI and diverse, non-dwarf sidekicks. Gone were the iconic personalities, grumpy, dopey, sleepy, all erased in an attempt to be modern.
There's no life lesson to be had here, and instead it gets replaced with something far more sinister. They make a revisionist Marxist call to arms, where it is Disney's closest film to paraphrasing the Communist Manifesto, and it does.
Snow White is the fairest of them all because she has these communist sensibilities to share all resources with the farmers that till the land, and she got those sensibilities from her mother and her father.
The backlash was instant. Fans were confused. How could a company that built its empire on Snow White and the 7 dwarfs just erase the dwarfs? But it wasn't just Disney fans who were outraged. Actors with dwarfism spoke out, furious that Hollywood had taken away one of the few major acting opportunities available to them. Actor Dylan Postal, better known as WWE's Hornswoggle, slammed Disney for listening to one actor instead of an entire community. Other little person actors agreed, calling it a massive step backward for representation. Instead of fighting stereotypes, Disney had eliminated their chance to be part of a beloved classic. And what did we get instead? Generic side characters with no real charm, chemistry, or purpose. A lazy, half-baked attempt at inclusivity that pleased no one and alienated everyone.
Now you wash the dishes. You tidy up the room. You clean those cobwebs. And he'll use the broom. Whistle while you work. And cheerfully together we can tidy up the place.
In the original Snow White, she cleans the cottage after woodland animals take her there. When she learns the 7 dwarves live there, she offers to cook and clean the place for them as a sign of her gratitude. But in this one, she breaks in and then forces the dwarves to clean for her. So clearly the Barbie screenwriter they hired to write this film thinks that this is a clever kind of role reversal. Funny that making a feminist version of a character always means, in practice, just turning her into an unpleasant, unlikable nag.
The modern empowered Snow White won't even allow domestic labor carried out by herself. Instead, she orders the dwarves to tidy up themselves, even when they've had a hard day down the mine.
It's their house.
But it's so obvious now because of the blight of intersectionality that's spread throughout our entire society that we can't have a woman holding a broom. Not that Rachel Zegler would know what to do with a broom other than fly on.
Disney poured $200 million into Snow White, expecting a massive return. Executives were banking on at least $150 million in the opening weekend, but reality hit like a brick. The movie didn't even crack $45 million in the US. It became one of Disney's worst box office disasters in history. Overseas, even worse. The backlash had spread worldwide. Fans weren't just avoiding the movie, they were actively boycotting it. Online, the numbers told the whole story. IMDb, a brutal 2.2 out of 10, one of the lowest rated Disney films ever. Rotten Tomatoes audience scores, a disaster. Even the YouTube trailers were flooded with dislikes and negative comments. Critics tried to spin it, blaming review bombing and toxic fandoms. But the truth was obvious. Audiences were done with Disney's forced messaging. The same studio that once brought fairy tales to life was now pushing out soulless, agenda-driven remakes that nobody asked for. This wasn't just a flop, it was a wake-up call. Fans had spoken, and they weren't buying what Disney was selling anymore.
They should have just dropped it like every other steaming pile of dog shit they put on Disney Plus.
The dwarves got screwed, not once, not twice, but
And then they couldn't put dwarfs, finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. That many scripts that come down the pike.
No, it's 7 of them.
That has, and there's seven dwarf jobs here. But because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right.
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarfs. Okay,
but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical
creatures. But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it.
The 7 dwarfs of Snow White have, of course, all just disappeared, and now they're the 7 dysfunctional men, I assume.
I mean, I guess, what are we going to have? Like a lesbian, a trans person, someone in a wheelchair, someone of color? Like, I don't understand. Why weren't the dwarfs enough? But apparently they were too offensive because the most famous dwarf of all, Peter Dinklage, said something negative about it back in 2022, thus ruining the biggest acting roles the dwarfs had ever seen since the creation of Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas back in the 1970s.
Argument should have been from Peter Dinklage. There's power of being on TV. There's power of television. And to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story. Don't change the characters.
They couldn't have dwarves. Do you guys remember?
Yeah, because Peter Dinklage and all them were talking crap.
So originally they
took... Do you have a picture of what the dwarves were supposed to look like?
I can find it, but it was an array. It was the DEI of dwarves. Yep. Well, they had to reshoot the film and use CGI dwarves.
There you go.
So those guys didn't make it.
No. That guy's 6'2". That's sleepy, that's drunky, that's cokehead.
But what? You're joking.
They look like Santa's helpers.
And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho.
Disney's losing streak isn't just a rough patch. It's a full-blown crisis. Lightyear tanked. The Marvels bombed. Now Snow White? The trend is undeniable. Audiences are rejecting Disney's remakes and reboots. Why? Because instead of focusing on great storytelling, Disney keeps pushing modern messaging over entertainment. Every new film feels less like a classic and more like a lecture. Characters aren't written to be relatable. They're designed to send a message, and people are done with it. Online, the backlash is relentless. Memes tearing Disney apart flood X, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Critics and fans alike are roasting the studio, calling them out for losing their magic. Boycotts aren't just talk anymore, they're working. So, what's Disney's next move? Will they finally listen to their audience and course correct? Or will they double down and dig themselves into an even deeper hole? At this rate, the answer could determine the future of the entire company.
By the way, she's not a good actress, never should have been cast for this role. I mean, you could just look at her, you say, that's not Snow White. I mean, come on.
Just in, an enormous cultural failure, Disney's Snow White, which cost $250 million, raked in a miserable $43 million during its premiere, and that's from the AP. Imagine if you guys just made entertainment sake for the sake of entertaining.
Right now, Disney is at a crossroads. After back-to-back flops, they have 2 choices. Wake up and listen to their audience, or keep bleeding billions. Bob Iger has hinted at a shift, but will it actually happen? Will Disney finally return to the classic storytelling that made them legendary? Or will they keep forcing unpopular changes, ignoring the very fans who made them successful? Because let's be real, the damage is already done. Snow White wasn't just a flop, it was a warning. Audiences are done tolerating lazy remakes, bad writing, and forced messaging. So here's the real question. Is Disney finished? Or is there still time to turn things around? Disney used to be about magic. Now it's about agendas. Once upon a time, they created legends. Now they create flops. So what do you think? Can Disney be saved, or is this the beginning of the end? Let me know in the comments.